Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about what I believe, in my opinion, is the coolest zodiac sign. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Now, you probably wonder, well, what am I actually referring to by cool? Because cool can be interpreted in manifold ways. There's a number of definitions for that. But I'm mainly going with, as far as that slang cool, uh, defined at urbandictionary.com as neato, awesome, swell. And another thing I think is interesting about this and how it's going to this word and how it's going to relate to the sign I choose at the end of the video. Now, whatever, cool is a word that generally, it's not going to be, ridiculed, mocked, or chastised for using. It's not one of those words that will go be, as far as style goes, will be ever be eliminated. It always can be stylish, so to speak, and always be used consistently, and it has been for many for a pretty long time. I believe it will continue to be. And the sign I choose generally won't chastise you either, in spite of whatever your principles or beliefs may be, and your mannerisms or what have you. So anyway, well, and also, too, Merriam-Webster.com describes cool. One of their definitions, anyways, fashionable or hip. This also, and also cool can be that really composed, and also a composed nature. Maybe not unflappable, but very calm, kind of placid, and about composure. So, anyway. Well, the first sign I want to talk about is Aries. I say no to Aries because Aries can have a rather acerbic and acrimonious nature. I understand they have their good qualities, like being have a lot of fortitude and courage, and they can be downright fearless. But they could be overly combative, even though they're not vengeful or vindictive. Their hot temper would certainly be a reason as to why I would say no to this zodiac sign, because sometimes they will they'll just completely become rather, again, acerbic. They can be very volatile if they don't get their way about something. And I know they calm down very easily, but they can have a very overly outspoken nature as well, which is, it may be good in some cases, but in others, they may rebuff people. And I really don't, and to me, it's hard for me to put them as the coolest zodiac sign. So anyway, now, Taurus, I would say, falls short of this because Taurus, they are so, they have such a strong aversion to going anywhere. And well, you probably wonder, well, what does that have to do with being cool or not cool? Well, what it is that because of that part of Taurus, it's really harder for others to have an enjoyable time with them. For that reason, because they just really are, they're similar to Cancer. Cancer could be very introverted, but Taurus is really more of a homebody because I think they're just so enamored by domestic interests, while Cancer is just more connected, really just with their home and their family life. It's really more, Taurus just likes to do things in general that are enjoyable around the home that they feel comfortable with. Now, and the thing is, Taurus can be rather in a negative manifestation, be very obstinate, stubborn, and intractable, despite having a very passive and easygoing nature often. And the fact that they are so, so about not really hearing others' opinions, and really lack of being open-minded to things. I could really relate to this to some degree, having Taurus rising, of course. So I would say, definitely say no to Taurus as far as being the coolest zodiac sign. Going to Gemini. Well, Gemini may be one of the cooler zodiac signs. They could be very versatile, multifaceted, very adaptable to many different things. Actor Matt McConaughey has a Gemini rising. I've spoken about him before at least a couple times in previous videos. And he seems like he would be a really cool person to hang with. I think, for people, I'm sure, Gemini rising can be somebody that I would see could be very cool because of their adaptability and their sociability and the fact that they are so versatile and multifaceted. And also, Gemini people can talk about many different subjects, and also very loquacious, and again have great sociability. But The thing about Gemini is that they could be so vacillating and changeable that that part of them would make them fall short of this, and this is something that could rebuff others. And the fact they could be very contradictory. They could say they're going to do one thing one minute, and then they go completely in the opposite direction the next. So I don't see them as quite the coolest zodiac sign. I think they could be a close second or third to the one I'm going to choose at the end of the video, but I don't choose Gemini. Next sign. Well, the zodiac sign Cancer, I'd say no to as well as far as being the coolest zodiac sign. I mean, Cancer can be very fickle, moody, and temperamental. And really, it's hard to really see that. When you see that side of Cancer, it's really hard to see them as being really not an awesome trait, and it's not something that's what you would call like, something that would be seen as swell. The Cancers, do have their positive attributes and qualities. They could be very nurturing and sympathetic, and they could be one of the better rescuers of the astrology kingdom of the zodiac. But the fact that Cancer, what it is about them, they have an overly introverted nature often. They are often dominated by their home and family, and really it's hard to get them a lot of times to go outside the box, so to speak, and really allow others to perhaps even see their cool side of them. So for those reasons, they are also Cancer is really, for me to say that they're the coolest zodiac sign, be very hard to. So anyway, so no to Cancer. Now the next sign. Now, Leo. Well, Leo, they could have a very domineering nature. They could be very authoritative. I understand they have that sunny disposition and everything. They could be very extroverted and gregarious, often the life of a party. But they're a sign, they could actually become irritated if you don't laugh at their jokes. Their pride in them really makes it hard for me to see them as the coolest zodiac sign. The arrogant side of them in a very negative manifestation as well could make them appear very uncool, so to speak. Leos, they do have a lot of good qualities. I understand their courage and fortitude, the fact they're very magnanimous. But they're also, they're not really vindictive or revengeful, but at the same time, when their pride gets hurt and their ego gets hurt, they could do certain things like maybe make a joke about you in front of other people just to get a rise out of you, so to speak. So things like that, it makes it very somewhat uncool. I don't see them as the coolest zodiac sign. Next sign. Well, as far as Virgo goes, Virgo, they could be very judgmental and critical. That is the one negative trait about them, and I feel that, I know there's might be some people out there that think that I'm being judgmental and critical about them by saying that, but I'm speaking what I think is the veritable truth. I say positive and negative statements about all zodiac signs. I do try to be as objective as I can. That being said, I don't see Virgo really as being overly mean or malicious, though. It's generally, however, they can emphasize a lot of criticism and really can be seen as very uncool by other people, I think. And they can have very astute powers of the observation. The problem with that is, they could spot something in a way, in an observation that could be beneficial to you. Like, say, like if you got, like a leak or something somewhere. But they can also, they could spot something, just in order to help you out. But sometimes it could be somewhat critical. They could say, oh, your alignment's off by, like they say your alignment's off by such and such on your vehicle, when it really doesn't matter if it's like half a degree or something where it's inconsequential, where it's something rather trivial, or a spot of dirt on a curtain, a very, minuscule spot from like 10 feet away, and they'll actually pick that up, and they often will be the ones to say something about that. And part of it's attributed to their powers of observation. I understand it, but sometimes those things don't need to be said. A lot of times people do know that, though, things like that anyway. They're just really weren't worried about it the way Virgo may have been. So that is something where that is something that, as far as Virgo goes, it's hard for me to see them being the coolest zodiac sign. They might point out the compression ratio of your car being off very slightly, or the alignment off just by a little bit, where it really doesn't really make that much difference. I mean, if especially in a lot of times when, like I said, if it's inconsequential, if it doesn't really impact anybody that much, those are the things they'll often point out. Um, so no to Virgo. Now the next sign, Libra. Well, Libra can certainly be a viable candidate because, I mean, Libra is very, I mean, they're the socialites of the zodiac. They are also very balanced, equitable, and fair-minded. They often they have often a great propensity to bounce ideas off others. They often weigh the pros and cons on things for a while and try to give often a fair solution to something. They could be very strongly about reconciliation and perhaps be the best mediators of the zodiac. But in the negative manifestation, Libra is a sign, though, at the same time, sometimes they could put on a superficial charm or often just ingratiate themselves with others in groups or what have you in order to enhance their popularity or for increase in social status or their stature in life. And for me, I don't really see them as really being the coolest zodiac sign. Hold on a minute, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. Anyway, next sign I want to talk about, well, Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, I mean, it's hard for me to say that they're the coolest zodiac sign. Negative manifestation can be vindictive, vengeful, and also can be very manipulative and controlling. They really, I think them along with Leo are the ones that often go on their power trips a lot of times, and especially if they feel, they're threatened by somebody in some way, shape, or form. And the thing about it is they often have difficulty letting others in their lives. A lot of it is due to a very cynical, secretive, and suspicious nature. And it really, because of that in them, it does make it very difficult for others to even see their cool side because they are so secretive, and they could be really strongly about seclusion and really much to themselves. Like I mentioned this before in previous videos, but my grandmother had a Scorpio rising, and she had a chart that appeared to be very extroverted and gregarious. She had a preponderance of planets above the horizon, a number of planets and astrological energy in masculine signs, including a sun in Leo and also a moon in Aquarius. But the Scorpio rising, I felt, dominated her because she was very secretive, very suspicious. She didn't really have much of a social life. She didn't really let many people come over to her home. She was very much to herself. And the point I'm making is this is not a knock on Scorpio, but the thing about them often is that they don't really allow a lot of people into their lives to really see potentially that cool side of them. So anyway, so notice Scorpio. Now, Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius is a sign, that could certainly be a viable candidate for the coolest zodiac sign. They are often, very jocular and jovial. They could bring life and happiness to even the most despondent or melancholy group because they have such positive energy. They try to focus on the positive side of things, and they could be very encouraging and could really, they have such a robust sense of humor. They often have very effervescent and so positive. Again, they could give the most pessimistic and despondent person more hope. But the thing about Sagittarius, well, I think I can't quite put them as the coolest zodiac sign. Given in fact, it's a mutable sign, there's certain vacillation to them. They often are the meanders of the zodiac. They don't have a lot of persistence in terms of their connections with others, and they have a hard time. Gemini is more about not mentally wanting to be pinned down, while Sagittarius, in contrast, could often be about not physically wanting to be pinned down. So they can make a connection quick with someone, but they're just off to perhaps in some cases another country, another state or whatever, because they just don't have that ability to really have the sustained connections, and I think, and also the factor bluntness, again, to speaking what they feel is their veritable truth, can often alienate others. So for those reasons, I don't think Sagittarius is the coolest zodiac sign. Now, as far as Capricorn goes, well, they are ruled by Saturn, and it's a cold planet, I believe. They exhibit certain coldness and as far as their demeanor goes, but not really in the cool in what I'm really describing. They could, in some cases, very negatively expressed. They could come across as very callous and undemonstrative. They also, the way there's something about their melancholy side can often rub off on people in a negative fashion. They can be overly pessimistic. Now, Capricorn, I understand they have their good qualities and attributes like all the other zodiac signs. They could be very ambitious. They have certain tenacity in them. They often are about following the parameters and really going by the book, so to speak. But they could be so dominated by their career interests and business matters. They are not ones to really show, often have difficulty showing a whimsical or capricious side to them. They often have, I mean, in a solar natal chart, Capricorn will often have Sagittarius on the 12th house cusp. There is a reason for that. They're often limited in showing a jovial or jocular nature, but doesn't mean they can't show that privately, because the 12th house is about our solitude and seclusion and what one may do behind closed doors in private. But they generally have difficulty showing that side, and it really is hard, I mean, for me to say that they're the coolest zodiac sign. So no to Capricorn. Next sign. Well, as far as Pisces goes, well, Pisces can be very adaptable. They're more than capable of dealing with the most adverse situations because they know often how to make the best of them and see the best in them. They're very idealistic. Now, Pisces, though, also can be very self-sacrificing, can be very compassionate toward others, and very philanthropic. They're often people that will sacrifice a lot for others. They're generally not avaricious or about materialism, unlike Taurus, unfortunately. As an example, but see, the thing about Pisces, to me, what makes it hard for me to say that they're the coolest zodiac sign, they could be very malleable. They often are influenced by the people that are around them, and sometimes whether it might make them turn on another person, or what have you. What happens is, I mean, they could be easily influenced by what maybe somebody says to them about somebody that may be a friend of theirs, and they could easily go in the other direction and not, sadly, I mean, Pisces is a very, I mean, overall, they're very compassionate sign. They could often be very benevolent, very good. They really have good hearts, a lot of them. But the fact that they could be so about the malleability with them is what really, and can be very impressionable, very often easily influenced by really, as far as drugs and alcohol goes, more so than the other signs on average. As I've stated in previous videos, I mean, the theory about them, some may concur and some may not. They're actually that amalgamation combination of the previous 11 zodiac signs. So they really, it's their identity really that makes things, it really can confuse others. I think they are very confused often as well, but they can confuse others in the process. It's very hard for me to say that, and the fact they can be very submissive and timid, they often isolate themselves from the harshness of the outside world, so it doesn't really give those people an opportunity to see the cool side of them. So I would say no to Pisces as far as being the coolest zodiac sign. Well, anyway, the sign I'm going to choose is the what I think is, in my opinion, unequivocally the most, I should say, the coolest zodiac sign is Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, I understand they are a fixed sign, but they're often about humanitarianism, very selfless. It is the sign that corresponds with friendship. They could be the universal friend, the prototypical friend for people. They often like things that are very contemporary and that are cool for that time being. They are often, I mean, averse to being egocentric and often about doing things for the collective good of the group as opposed to oneself. Now, again, despite being a fixed sign, they are often very progressive and futuristic. The thing about Aquarius, what makes, I think, in a way, them cool is because it can be so enigmatic, because they can be so paradoxical. They can be, I mean, as I've stated in previous videos, Aquarius can be, also as an example, their spending habits could be paradoxical. They could be a sign, I mean, that might be extravagant with large items, and then more frugal with lower expensive items, with smaller items that generally aren't costly, such as just general household items, like things you buy, as far as hygienic things, for example. Now, again, they could be very progressive and futuristic. They are often open to new ideas from others, and really, despite being fixed, they are very open, can be open-minded about new things. They are often very tolerant of others' defaults and deficiencies. They are ones that they could be the consummate friend, and they're also about consideration of others. They are often the ones that will close the door quietly when they're leaving to go to work or whatever, when somebody else in the household might still be sleeping, more so than the other signs, I believe, on average. And they are also, I mean, they could really, and also can give a cool impression, especially if Aquarius is rising in a chart. Now, President Barack Obama has an Aquarius ascendant, and they showed him, I'm sorry, former U.S. President Barack Obama has an Aquarius ascendant. They showed him one time on some video on TV or something. He was making like some 40-foot basket or something. He seemed very calm and composed in doing so, which of course hides a more excitable, high-strung, I guess you could say, Leo sun sign. But anyway, he shows, kind of epitomizes that Aquarius energy, I believe. Now, again, perhaps maybe they are cool in a way because they are co-ruled by Saturn and Uranus, and they're both cool planets. Now, and Uranus is a very cold planet like Saturn as well. And they're also cool in their temperament. They're not ones to be dominated by their emotions. And the thing about what Aquarius, to me, what makes them so cool as well, is they often have a plethora of interesting ideas and activities for others. And there's really never, and rarely, a dull moment around unpredictable Aquarius. And the thing about them too is I see them, I mean, Aquarius very well, I mean, is the most cerebral of all the zodiac signs on average, and they can be often very innovative. And the thing about them too is they are often cool with others' idiosyncrasies, and really very not being, they're ones that can really not be critical of others and very non-judgmental of them, because maybe it has something to do with the fact that they have a lot of their own idiosyncrasies, and they don't really, hopefully, they don't expect others to necessarily criticize them for it. So, and another thing I think it's interesting about, you talk about coolness of a zodiac sign, interesting about Aquarius is that they are in that, as far as the middle month, you could say, that middle period, that middle month of the winter, as far as the middle sign of what I call the winter zodiac signs. The first one, of course, being Capricorn, and then Aquarius, and then last but not least Pisces. And of course, Aquarius, approximately that interval in dates is between roughly January 20th, February 18th. So they are, I mean, it's really, maybe that's another reason that we could see them as the coolest zodiac sign. And the thing about Aquarius too is that they are very, I mean, often very about what's contemporary. Sometimes they go even above and beyond that. And the thing about them too, Aquarius is interesting. They could be very unorthodox, unconventional, and progressive. But and really they are, and often very non-conforming, and it makes them very interesting, and I think this actually is a very cool element to them. But what I want to close with about Aquarius is that cool can be seen as never maybe going out of any style, but neither does Aquarius's selflessness, their humanitarianism, their consideration for others, their uniqueness, and their friendship and benevolence. And really, I think that's something that doesn't go out of style either as far as characteristics of a person, and people would see them as really hoping that that doesn't that, it's something that shouldn't go out of style for people anyway. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for what I believe is the coolest zodiac sign. And stay tuned next time, where I am going to be talking about the October 8th, 2018 new moon in Libra. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Till next time, people, stay well.